The studio is Samuel Greene, the director of the King's Russia Institute at King's College London. Thank you very much for coming to speak to us. So we were hearing Prime Minister Theresa May say that either it was a direct attack by the Russian government or this nerve agent fell into the wrong hands. Are those the only two possibilities here?
Well, it would seem to be. I mean, assuming that that the agent is what she says it is, and that the only stockpiles would have been in Russia, right? And there's some investigation, I suppose, to be done around that, right? Then either way, the government decided to allow somebody to use it, right, or failed to keep control over its stockpiles. If this is indeed a military-grade weapon that we're talking about, it is the responsibility of the Russian government, one way or another, to keep control over that, right? So,
and by asserting that Russia was probably behind this poisoning, she has now put herself under even greater pressure to act. How much room does she have to maneuver in terms of the measures that the government now takes against Russia?
Well, right now, what we have to do is wait and see how Russia responds, right? So Russia could point to somebody, right, who may have been acting without the government's approval, right, and allow the investigation to move in that direction, or it could dig in its heels the way it did over things like MH17
Are they
and other
likely
cases.
to do that? We've heard reaction describing today's statement as a circus.
Well, yes, and they've been. I mean,
this.
we've heard accusations from Russia that this could be a false flag operation, that the British government itself could have been behind it. We'll have to wait and see what happens. The likelihood, I think, is that they will probably deny any knowledge or involvement, right? Having sort of termed this in her statement today as unlawful use of force by a foreign power, right? That does raise the stakes, right? She's going to have to come up with some kind of a response that rises to the level of that rhetoric. That's tantamount to a declaration of hostilities. And
so then what further measures can she take, given what we already saw in the aftermath of the Litvinenko poisoning?
Well, so in fact, there's been more since then, as a result of the conflict in Ukraine in terms of sanctions, right? So on that respect, there are some additional economic sanctions and pressure that can be put on Russia, particularly having to do with Russia's national debt and that sort of thing. But really, any significant leverage is going to have to come through Britain's alliances, through its relationships, particularly in NATO. If Britain is going to want to send a message, it's going to have to be one of solidarity, right? In which it's made clear to Moscow that it cannot take these kinds of steps versus one country in the European or the North Atlantic community and still maintain a working relationship with the rest.
But so there is no effective unilateral response. It has to be done in cooperation with European and American allies.
There are unilateral responses that are available to London. They are not likely to be sufficient to change Russia's cost-benefit calculation.
But with that in mind, when you look at the general climate, we see a Russia that is very much emboldened on the international stage. Is anyone really going to be in the mood to take action against Russia?
Well, I think we're going to have to wait and see. Again, coming back to something like MH17, right, where the Netherlands very much were in the lead, having lost a large number of their citizens in that disaster, right? They got their evidentiary ducks in a row, and they did a lot of diplomatic work to get support behind a very powerful sanctions regime, right? It's going to take an effort of that caliber.
Well, thank you very much. Samuel Greene from King's College London. Thanks for your analysis.